Alright, part 5. The second to last episode lies before us now, and I am a bit sad to see this series go, but there's future projects I can't wait to get to. So without further ado, let's see that intro! Okay, jumping straight into the criteria, it's right up there. Give it a good look, study it. I rank all of the aspects by a score out of 10, and then average it all together to give each Arcana a final overall score. Alright, Wheel, let's see what you got. Razor. Okay, so if y'all didn't know this already, Razor is my favorite hero. I've reached level 30 with him. I've unlocked the second Arcana style. I've commissioned multiple artworks of him. I've written fan fiction about this guy. Link in the comments. He's my absolute favorite. So I will try my best to hide my bias here for a moment to make this as fair as possible. However, this might be the longest amount of time I spend reviewing an Arcana since I've spent so much time with it. So, the visual design. I find two features of this visual design very compelling. Firstly, the color choice. Every shade of purple seen here, from the drapes to the cyclone to the lightning, is all very visually pleasing. Even though they're all different shades, they still work really well together due to the dark silver that holds it all like glue. It's only two simple colors, but the artists made it work really, really well. The lightness of the purple contrasts the silver perfectly, and it makes every feature on this Arcana pop. The second style, unfortunately, lacks all of this nuance. This brass color they used for his armor and weaponry is too bright to have any meaningful contrast with the turquoise body. The second feature of this visual design that works really well is the shape language. It's very elegant and sharp. Everything on this guy's armor starts with sleek curves and ends with a point. It communicates something powerful and beautiful all at once. Additionally, I like how the prongs on this helmet essentially act like a Jacob's ladder for lightning to dance between. The only critique I have for this Arcana is that it does not mesh well at all with his other existing sets. I've managed to make a few passable combinations, but it's not much. A solid 9 out of 10. This is possibly the best Arcana lore in the entire game. To summarize, Razor, or default Razor that is a lightning revenant who is tasked with whipping souls along the narrow maze. This narrow maze is a huge labyrinth where souls run through the halls trying to find any exit they can to reach their afterlife. Through his interactions with other characters, especially Visage, it's implied that Razor doesn't exactly like his position in life.
You should not be here, Razor. Get back to work, Razor.
We're not so different, Razor. But I make my own choices now. You should try it sometime.
So, in his Arcana's lore, it's revealed that he was put there by the court of Restule after he made a Faustian bargain and wants to seek freedom. He never had the power to rise up his enslavers on his own, but he was gifted some weapons and armor from the Void to aid in his rebellion. Accepting these Void-crafted artifacts fractured his mind, however, leaving him a bit loony. I think this is great. I would love to see Razor and Queen of Pain team up to take down the Court of Restule in a Crownfall-esque event. This lore fundamentally changes the character's motives and place in the world, but what I would really love to know is whether this equipment originated from Faceless Void or Void Spirit. There are good reasons for both. Firstly, we'll look at the Faceless Void side of things. This Arcana was released in the same Battle Pass as Faceless Voids. Giving Razor this weaponry to rebel means that Razor not only owes Faceless Void a favor, but will likely align himself with him in the future. And aligning yourself with the guy whose job it is to deal with souls is a pretty solid move if you're after souls to constantly delay your own death. Now on the Void Spirit side of things, these weapons and pieces of armor aren't green. Faceless Void is almost always seen wielding a green weapon and wielding green armor, but this isn't the case for Razor's armor. Void Spirit's lore also indicates that he knows secrets that would shatter the mortal mind. Razor isn't exactly a mortal, per se, but I could see how forbidden knowledge could warp his intellect. But for what reason would he want Razor to rebel? To prepare for the Great Confluence. We don't know a whole lot about this Great Confluence, but what we do know is that it's approaching. Void Spirit knows about it, and that a confluence is when two or more things merge into one. This could mean that all dimensions merge into a single whole, every being on the same plane of existence. We don't know exactly what Void Spirit's alignment is, but if you wanted to make sure that demons wouldn't take power once this reality merge happens, giving the means to slay them via their own slave would be a decent, reasonable move, especially since Void Spirit doesn't exactly like to make physical appearances himself. Additionally, Void Spirit would likely know what is happening with Faceless Void and Claws. Getting control over the narrow maze would be a good spot to stop Faceless Void from going on an endless soul spree to keep himself alive. Either way, our boy Razor is being manipulated to serve someone else, which is ironic and tragic, considering how he sees himself as liberated. I personally lean towards the Void Spirit side of things. I know this Arcana was released with the Faceless Void Arcana, but the evidence presented makes me lean towards the Void Spirit origin the more I think about it. Overall, this Arcana lore is awesome. I am so glad that my favorite character received such an immaculate switch up to his motives, and is still under the thumb of a higher power in a really sad sort of way. He just can't catch a break, and he likely doesn't even know he's being used. 10 out of 10. I personally hate when assets are reused, especially for something for which I paid so much. So when I saw that Static Link's effect was a purple-fied version of the Pugna Immortal, I was more than a little disappointed. That disappointment soon faded once I saw the Plasma Field effect. This effect is downright awesome. Everything from the electricity running about the ground to the explosion of energy that starts it off. It's easily the best looking spell here. The ult has this neat little tornado effect when it starts, with a shield acting as the focal point. I kind of wish it stayed as a vortex the whole time, but I suppose it would be too much visual noise. Storm Surge is nice. I just really wish they would fix the icon. It's been like this ever since they introduced facets, and Valve has not given the whole 30 seconds or less it would take to drag the ability icon into the right spot. As for the second style, man, this is just bad. You had it right with the item icons. The item icons on the second style look so nice. Why did you just use a color change to make the ability icons? Look, I'm going to recreate the second style ability icons right now. Wow. Eye of the Storm also doesn't look as good as the first style. The first style is amazing, but the second style desperately needs some work. 8 out of 10. For this mentally fractured Razor, we get an over-adequate performance from Eric Newsom. I love the sound of his voice, and he really does seem broken at certain points, as if he's given in to despair, but still insists on fighting for his freedom.
You'll find only madness in the eye of this storm. I seek no glory, only retribution. I fight for nothing.
A few notable things I'd like to point out. His laugh sounds like crackling electricity at some points. This showcases Eric Newsom's talents excellently, and it's really enjoyable to listen to. I also like the noises he makes when casting Plasma Field, as if it's taking him a good deal of effort to produce. A perfect voiceover for this Arcana. 10 out of 10. This is the only aspect in which the Arcana needs work. Plasma Field and Static Link have no animations attached to them. Plasma Field I can kind of understand lacking in animation, but Static Link could have definitely used one. When casting the ability, Razor stands there for about half a second. Have him hold out the shield and pull it back, or point to his target with his sword. There is so much missed potential here. As for Plasma Field, they could have animated him spinning or having him hunched over only to arch back as he releases his power. At least Eye of the Storm has an animation, and he has his shield back. But he just threw it up in the air to make the storm cloud, and now he has it again? Really? Every other animation of this Arcana, from the teleport to the taunt, is great, but this really puts a hole in my bucket. I get that heroes like Huskar and Luna do the same thing with their auto attacks, but this is an ultimate ability. Every ultimate ability of the modern Arcana should try to be as flashy as possible with immense attention to detail, not only in their spell effects, but in their animations as well. And this is just kind of baffling, but not surprising, unfortunately. I will say that the animations surrounding his sword and shield are immaculate. The way they activate once he enters his combat stance is a very nice detail, and I'm glad this combat stance trend thing is becoming a standard not only in Arcana design, but also default hero design. The spell animations definitely do need some work though. 7 out of 10. Alright, overall the Razor Arcana earns a 9 out of 10 from me. An awesome Arcana for my favorite hero held back by poor and non-existent spell animations. It was about time we moved on anyways. The Razor Arcana alone took up 3 pages of my script, and we still have 3 Arcanas to go. Wheel time. Io. It's a companion cube. The textures are nice. It's made of crystals. This Arcana is... Okay, look, I don't exactly have a lot to work with here. It's just a Portal reference. A nice reference nonetheless, but still, it's just a reference. I really enjoy the Portal series though. They were some really good games, but that's all I can really say about this. Let's just say that this was not a triumph. 4 out of 10. The lore of this Arcana essentially tells us that Io heavily values friendship. I think this is alright. Io doesn't really have a personality, so to speak, so this one personality trait we get is very much welcome. The lore also implies that Io has visited the universe in which the Portal series and Half-Life series take place. This isn't a huge revelation or anything, really. It doesn't impact any characters in the Portal or Half-Life universe, and Io isn't really a character I can get invested in, so this lore is kind of a nothing burger. 2 out of 10. The spell effects are easily the best part of this Arcana. Everything is heart-themed due to, Io being a companion cube, and the ult looks fantastic. It also fixes a few gameplay readability issues. The return point is very noticeable, and you can easily tell when Io is going to return, rather than trying to focus on the small numbers counting down that can easily blend into the river. Everything looks amazing, especially the ult, and it all earns a fat 8 out of 10. The little jingles they added to this Arcana are a very welcome addition. The credit song from the first Portal game is amazing, and these little homages are awesome. It's only 2 additional voice lines of the same tune, which is a bit of a shame, but it's not like they could stuff the entire OST in this Arcana. 5 out of 10. I like how the sides of the cube rotate around, so it's not just a static cube we're looking at. It adds some nice visual interest to an Arcana that could easily become very boring to look at. I also find the taunt animation very amusing. I think there was more potential that Valve could work with than what we got. For example, the cube sides could start rotating faster during overcharge, or the wind-up for relocate could have the cube condensed tightly only to burst open and resettle to its normal size once the portal opens. For what Valve was working with, they did their best? 5 out of 10. Overall, this Arcana gets a 5 out of 10 from me, an absolute banger of spell effects surrounded by a whole lot of mid. I think Valve could have gone further with this Arcana, but I guess they didn't want to invest all that work into an Arcana that only won the vote because of a meme. Okay, next Arcana. This wheel looks emptier and emptier by the day. Wind Ranger. I feel really weird about this one, not gonna lie. Like, this doesn't look like Wind Ranger. The facial structure is just not the same like it was in Queen of Pain's Arcana. When I initially saw this in 2020, I thought Wind Ranger was getting a remodel or something in the near future because of how different her face looks from the base model. But face changes, or lack thereof, in Arcanas have always been prevalent, so I'm barely willing to look past this. Outside of that, I really enjoy this Arcana. She looks practical, with bits of lightweight, leathery armor and a flowy outfit that she can easily maneuver in. It makes sense for her job as a ranger. The size of the bow is on the cusp of ridiculousness, and speaking of that, I wish she had an archery glove for her other hand. She has all this gear on her other hand, just to have nothing on her other hand, which does most of the work. What surprised me about the bow the most was that it didn't take on themes of bird feathers, but bug feathers. It lines up with the fact that butterflies are everywhere all over this Arcana and adds some nice visual interest. The color choice for Style 1 is awesome. It's not in your face like the saturation of her base model, but it still manages to distinguish itself from the environment and other heroes. The contrast of her red hair against the blue outfit lets you know during gameplay that this is for sure Wind Ranger. Making this Arcana blue at all could have had major complications considering Drow Ranger, but Valve handled it excellently. The second style looks very nice, and though it lacks the distinct contrast of the first style, the way her orange hair plays off the red outfit is just awesome to look at, especially considering the time of year right now. They nailed the autumn colors with this. The visual design of this Arcana respectfully earns a fat 10 out of 10. And now, on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have an absolute joke of a lore. Queen of Pain's Arcana was released before this in the same battle pass and had a whole comic attached to it, with an additional lore bio that summarizes the events of said comic. It's consistent, substantial, and furthers her character towards a story with a clear, distinct motive. Let me summarize the lore of this Arcana right now. She realized that her family dying was supposed to happen so the wind could reclaim her. She realized something. No explanation where this new outfit came from, or why her limbs are starting to blow away and be all windy. The only thing we get is this. Her strange connection with the guardian wind became ever stronger. But the way it's written just doesn't convey that this is the focal point of the lore that differentiates the Arcana from base Wind Ranger. The lore doesn't tell us how Wind Ranger reacted to this, or what she did afterwards, or anything. She realized something, and now we're here. For a modern Arcana, this is beyond laughable. 1 out of 10. The spell effects on this Arcana are immaculate. However, the item effects are the highlight for me. The one thing I don't get is this black scorch mark that appears under the Yule's effect. Additionally, the slingshot effect is pathetic. It's just the usual spell with a tornado placed over it. I think the VFX artist could have done Whirlwind a bit better. These phantoms don't look opaque enough, and it's very easy to miss the effect from up above. Outside of these exceptions, these spell effects are great. The windy tornado aesthetic is awesome in both styles, and it's gonna earn a 7 out of 10 from me. Wind Ranger's default voice lines are cringeworthy and annoying, beyond belief.
If you were still alive, I'd still be shooting.
Like, yeah, that's obvious. That's not a witty one-liner. That's just what you would do. Of course you would still be firing arrows if they were alive.
If you were still alive, I'd still be shooting.
Oh, that voice line got brought over to the Arcana? Oh. Well, at least the delivery is better, I guess. I genuinely wonder if Valve sat Jen Taylor in the studio and told her to have the most annoying tone possible. If that was their intention, it sure worked.
You didn't need that. Could be worse. Oh, wait, no, it couldn't. Who can have predicted this? Oh, wait, me.
I will say, though, the Tome of Knowledge lines are sick, and I really wish the trigger for them got swapped over to the Wisdom runes, because currently, there's no way to hear these in-game.
Did you know Dragon Knights never charge for their services? Did you know there was some kind of big disaster in Dark Reef a while back? Oh, wait, I already knew that. Did you know the Shadowgate amulet can... Wait, really? Second thought, we should make sure no one ever finds out about that one.
Overall, it's good acting, and these voice lines are some high-quality BM. I don't enjoy listening to them, but they do their job excellently. 8 out of 10. The animation has a lot of nice touches. I specifically like the Yule's animation, where it looks like she's controlling the wind to her favor. The Force Staff slide is nice, and I really like the Wind Run animation. It's not just her regular walking animation, but sped up. However, some of the animations involving the bow can look a bit awkward at times. This weapon is way too big, I feel, and Wind Ranger seems like she's struggling to fire the thing sometimes. But besides that, another touch I really enjoy is the wind constantly blowing her hair and cape around. It adds some really nice detail, and without it, this Arcana would look really flat and uninteresting. 8 out of 10. Overall, the Wind Ranger Arcana earns a 7 out of 10 from me. Awesome all around, but Valve really just flopped the lore. There was so much potential, but none of it was utilized. Alright, last roll of the episode. One of these is not like the other. Lena. For the amount of trash we talk about this Arcana, it's not bad. It's certainly not worth 35 fat ones, but it doesn't look bad. This Arcana is supposed to be Lena's alpha model that was used early in Dota's development, and I honestly would have preferred this over Lena's default model, where the quality of her hair is just kind of bad. This Arcana isn't really comparable to the other Arcanas, largely because it was the first one. Valve probably didn't know how prestigious these things were going to end up being. I wish this Arcana would get a rework, and honestly, I see this only as a good thing for Valve. Giving the Lena Arcana a modern design would encourage people to spend money on it, and they could always keep the regular version as a style people could swap to. But yeah, this is only different hair that looks better than default. 2 out of 10. The lore bio we get is just describing that when Lena gets angry, her hair turns to fire. It's predictable, obvious, and boring. I've seen Immortals with more lore interest than this. 1 out of 10. All we get from $35 is 2 different spell icons and a new spell effect. The spell effect doesn't change much either, and I pity anyone who paid full price just for this. 2 out of 10. Besides techies, this is the only Arcana in the game that doesn't come with a voice filter or additional voice lines. And therefore, it's gonna get the default lowest score of a 1 out of 10. The only new animation we get from this Arcana is the idle pose. This idle pose, however, doesn't appear in-game, and only appears in the menu. I don't really need to explain why that's kind of terrible. 1 out of 10. Well, it was gonna come eventually, I just wish it wasn't at the end of an episode. This Arcana earns a pitiful 1 out of 10. The fact that Valve is still charging $35 for this is just disrespectful to their players. Either mark down the price or rework it into something usable. And one of these options is a surefire way to earn some cash, Mr. Valve employee who watches my videos. Well, I'm off to cleanse the palate after that. Thank you all for watching until the end. Let me know your thoughts on these Arcanas in the comments below. God bless, and until next time.